He had the car with all the bolt-ons, and he had the girlfriend with all the bolt-ons. Back in the days before I lived in New York, before I had a film car company, I actually was a dot-commer, believe it or not, in the first dot-com wave in the late 90s. They spent money like it was going like out of style. It was incredible. Everybody had their American Express black Centurion cards thrown down, and people were buying Harleys and all kinds of crazy things. And it was always these huge promotions these different companies would pass on, and they'd share it with all their vendors and clients. So I worked for a company called Organic in San Francisco, and it was one of those companies that started off small with a couple of guys, and it built really quickly, and they had a giant office. They had went international with like 8 offices, all within a few years. And if you called them and asked them what they did, they just said yes. Like, do you guys do fulfillment? Yes, we do. They'd hang up the phone and buy a fulfillment company, and suddenly they did fulfillment, and they did whatever you needed tech-wise. Wait, you build websites? Absolutely, whatever you need. And I did the marketing and branding there. They had a few events. They do, like, it was one of those places you hear about from time to time where they're like, they had a masseuse that came in on, this is dead serious, masseuse came in on Wednesdays. Fridays was beer night. So basically the whole place shut down at noon. They brought in kegs of beer, and it was a zoo. It was a playland. It was fantastic. One company, I think they were called Strawberry. I don't even know what they did. They called, I think, the biz dev department and said, hey, we're renting a racetrack. Anybody there would like to come out? We're doing a track day. And word kind of got out in a couple of departments, and it got over to me because they knew that I did cars and race cars and things. And I was like, yeah, I'll totally do that. And they're paying for the track day. They're like, yeah, it's run what you brung, bring what you can. I was like, great. I didn't have anything at that point that I'd actually wanted on a racetrack. So I figured, what can I rent? In like 99, 2000, 2001, right before the dot bomb happened, everything fell apart there in San Francisco. There weren't a lot of exotic car rentals, but there were places you could rent pretty cool cars. And I found a place that rented Honda S2000s, which had just come out. They were pretty new. These are the first generation that revved to like 9,000 RPM, and a lot of fun, good little sports car. So I figured I'll rent it. I'll see if I can put it on the company card somehow as an expense, and I'll get somebody else to go with me. So I found another guy in another department who had never been on a track before, and they had split the day between expert and novice. So he would do the novice 45 minutes, and I'd do the expert 45 minutes. We go back and forth. There was a big catered lunch, and then we go back out on the track, and then we drive home. It would be the perfect day, right? I pick up the car. They give you, the checklist, especially when you pick up exotic or high-level cars. They make you go through a whole checklist of things. I'm like, oh yeah, it's all good, fine. And we head off. And this was at Thunder Hill. And Thunder Hill is in Northern California. It's really a great track. But at that point, it wasn't the 5-mile track. It was still the 3-mile track. And it was developed by the SCCA as kind of a practice track. So there's tons of runoff. Like, you cannot screw up there and hit a wall. You'd have to really intentionally do it. So I was pretty confident we'd be able to run all day long. Even if he messed up, the car would be fine. And I got all the insurance on it anyway. So we drive up there. We get there in the morning. They talk to you, and they give you the whole thing. And we put on our helmets. And I'm like, let's just do this right. So I brought some tools with me. And we stripped out the passenger seat. And we took out the spare. We gutted it as much as we possibly could to make it light. I went out for the first session. And it was fun. I'd never driven one on track before. I like Honda S2000s. I got to admit, you have to drive it like a race car because there is no power down low in those things. They're absolutely dogs in the low RPMs. But up top, it's shrieking along. And there was a guy who came in his NSX, and he was very just, if you had to watch Silicon Valley, right out of it, right? Didn't have the doors that go like this, but it still was brand new NSX that he had everything done to. I mean, every carbon fiber panel you could find on it. Like every tweak and tire and wheel done to it. Absolutely done to it. He had the car with all the bolt-ons, and he had the girlfriend with all the bolt-ons. And he was there just showing off. He's going to be the king of the day with his NSX. So we're both going out in the expert session, and he cannot drive it out of a corner to save his life. And I'm up his butt. And we agreed that it would just be a wave-by situation, which if you go to a track day, that's pretty common. Car behind you, make contact and wave them by and let them go have some fun because it's not a race. Well, this is one of those competitive guys where everything's a race. There's a pretty decent straightaway going down up towards 1 at Thunderhill, and then there's a long left. It's not a hard corner. It's not difficult. You can hit it third, fourth gear pretty easily, not a problem. And this guy would be on the binders. So he would leave me, and then I'd catch up to him in the corner and try to get by him, and he'd be like, crowding me in. Finally, I'm like, I'm just gonna have to do a real racing pass on this guy just to get by him. He's harshing my mellow, man, right? So there's a turn. If you've seen the Car Trek episode where they take to Thunderhill, you'll see Freddie launch his car off this corner, and it's this up and down kind of little crow's nest thing. And I got him there. I went into it super hot and just passed it through there and punched out the other side, and I was gone. Oh, he came in hot after the session. Who's the guy in the S2000? And he's, this was right before lunch, and he's screaming and yelling. And I went over and talked to the organizer. I told him exactly. The organizer was like, I saw exactly what was happening. That's fine. He goes, that guy is out of control. Guy complains, just leaves. Good riddance. Because, if you know how to drive, and there's other people who don't know how to drive, it's not a competition, right? I've raced enough that I know I wasn't racing him, but I needed to get by him if I was going to have any fun. Be calm, people. If you go to these track days, just drive your own thing, please. He leaves, and we were really shredding this car. I'm pushing it as hard as I possibly can. And my friend's actually getting better and better and quicker and quicker. And this car has no rest. It's going out novice, that comes in hot, I hop in it, I go out. It's running like 4 hours in the morning. We have lunch, we go out for the evening session. I do my final session, and then my friend comes in, and he's all, something's really wrong. Something's really weird. The final session of the day. I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, it's like pulling to the side. He goes, I think I bent something. I'm like, what? He goes, I don't know. I look, and turns the car off, and you hear, psh, and there is a hole in the back tire you could put your pinky in. I don't know what he ran over, but this was a hole. We go get some of that tire goo you put in the valve, and it just squirts out the hole. And I'm like, okay, there's nothing open. This is the end of the day, and we're in the middle of like Willows, California, Northern California. There's nothing out there. I'm like, we run home on the spare. Like, what are we gonna do? We put more of the goo in. We'll just drive. We'll see if we can find a place. It'll seal itself. Like one of those things where you just kind of will the car to cure and heal itself. And as we leave, it's spewing itself out. So we bought another bottle of the goo, get to the gas station, fill up the gas station, fill up the tire, go to another gas station, fill up the tire. I'm like, it's got to build up at some point. It doesn't. We find this place. We pull into one of the really small towns off of 5, and it just says tire repair. And it's like a shed with a door hanging off the hinges, right? We pull in there. Guy's like, oh yeah. And he comes out and he's got a tire plug, and he plugs the tire for us on the car, charges us like $20. That was so lucky for that to happen. This is not the car related part, but on the drive home, we're driving back, and we had put a lot of miles on this car. If you just think about it, you're driving full tilt for 8 hours, plus the drive up there and back from San Francisco. And we're driving back to San Francisco, and I get a phone call. And it's my boss at Organic. And she's like, you're going to be getting a call from HR. I'm like, what's going on? And this was on a Monday. And she's like, things are changing here. What's going on? I can't tell you, but you're going to get a call from HR. Like, okay. So I call my other friend in the office. She's like, oh, half the company just got fired. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. And then the phone rings again, and it's my immediate supervisor going, I'm here with HR, and we have to talk to you about something. I'm like, I'm totally getting fired, aren't I? And they're like, oh. I'm like, no, this is great. You're firing me, right? They're like, well, we're going to have to let you go. Dude, I'm like, all right, that's great. What are we doing? Like, what's the severance package? What is it? Because I was like, I spent my last day at work at a racetrack. I'm like, that's how you do it .com style, right? I'm just going to spend the last day at a racetrack on your dime. Perfect. So I got fired in the car. They're like, well, you come in tomorrow, and we'll work out your package. What I had missed that day, I found out later, and it was actually in the New York Times. They did an article on how this was the worst handled mass firing at a .com they had ever been seen. They took half the company into the corner of this new building they had just spent millions of dollars retrofitting in San Francisco. Brought them all in there, huddled them up and said, everybody here is safe. You're all safe. You just got to remain here for a couple of hours. Meanwhile, armed guards went around everybody at their desk, told them they had 20 minutes to get out. They had already locked all their passwords. They couldn't get any of their work out of their computers. They had just had to gather their things and get the hell out. And the guards were to make sure that they didn't steal their Herman Miller chairs or anything, right? And they just swept through the building and kicked everybody out. I missed the purge, essentially. I came in the next day. Fortunately, I had snuck the admin password months ago. So I got into my computer, I got everything out. I got all the stuff out of the swag closet that I had designed for organic. I had all this stuff, put it in my Herman Miller chair and rolled it right out the door. I did return the car, by the way, the day before. That was funny because we put the seat and everything back in, but my friend had spun off once and grass had poured inside of it. We cleaned out as much as we could, but it was like one of those drizzly San Francisco evenings returning it. And it looked fine. When a car is wet, that's why you never buy a car with pictures that it's already just been washed, is because that hides a multitude of sins. Car's got, just a dusting of water on it. It looks fine. It has no brakes. Like, the brakes are gone. Tires, gone. I mean, all the consumables done in that car. We washed that car out. Not to mention the finger-sized hole in the rear tire. But the guy, it's a rental car place, right? So he walks around looking for scratches. And he's like, oh, that panel's good, that panel's good, that panel's good, that panel's good. He's like, you guys put over 1,000 miles on this thing in a day. I'm like, yeah, we were filming up the coast. We were doing a shoot. And he's like, oh, all right, okay, sure. Click, click, click. I mean, the second he handed me that sheet, I was like, thank you, right? Done, sealed, and all paid for by the dot bomb I had just been fired from.
When you're buying a pre-owned car, it is critical to get a professional mechanic to inspect it every time. And so the Lemon Squad is the easiest way to do that and the most affordable. Generally within 24 or 48 hours, they can get somebody on site anywhere in the country with their nationwide network of trained professional mechanics that are gonna give you a ton of pictures and a full report of exactly what's going on with this car. It's a great way to avoid scams, and it's a great way to get a very clear picture of the car that you're buying, and this ammunition can make you the shrewdest negotiator of all. It also makes the drive home a whole lot easier and keeps a little bit more money in your pocket, and I know that you'll love the results from the Lemon Squad. So check them out now at the link in the description below for a special discount and to make sure that you're buying the car that you think you are.